A very good evening to all of you. Welcome once again to another episode of Eclectica, the different news. Well, as you can see, my tone is very nasal, so something has gone wrong in my body, and my friendly microbes are not friendly anymore with me. So I got a bout of cold, cough, and fever. Well, as we all know that the human body is home to different kinds of microorganisms, right? Like bacteria, viruses, fungi, and some of them really they stay with us in symbiosis or like our friends, both on our body and inside our body. So it is also believed that we have more of them inside our bodies than we have cells. Now, you might be wondering why suddenly I'm talking today at Eclectica about microorganisms or microbes. You will understand very soon. Today, I have a dynamic personality as my guest on this show, Dr. Debojyoti Dhar. So, I will now introduce my guest and call him soon inside the studio. So, Dr. Debojyoti Dhar is the co founder and director of South Asia's first microbiome company, Leucine Rich Bio Pvt Limited. He received his PhD in molecular biology from Indian Institute of Sciences and has postdoctoral research experience from UMass Medical School, USA. He has worked extensively on translational control of gene regulation during his PhD and postdoctoral research. Dr. Dhar has over 15 years of experience in academic and industry research and development activities, especially in metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, and gut health, along with strong multi domain knowledge in pharmaceutical and biotechnology industries. He has held leadership positions in various companies with roles in R&D, business development, corporate communications, and consultancy, and has thorough knowledge on new cutting edge technologies in the bioscience space. An avid reader with keen interest in quantum physics and holistic medicine, Dr. Dhar writes a blog on disease, research, and its impact on society and life science industry in general. So you can find this blog at www.debisc.blogspot.in. Dr. Dhar has, to his credit, various publications in top tiered peer reviewed scientific journals and is an active reviewer of scientific papers in many journals. Dr. Debojyoti has been invited as guest or keynote speaker at many conferences and institutes. He has also featured in many science based talk shows on various TV channels such as German DWTV and Doordarshan India. His interviews have been featured in many media outlets such as the Economic Times, ET Prime, Indian Express, the Hindu Business Line, Chronicle PharmaBiz, etc. Dr. Dhar has led Leucine Rich Bio win many national and international awards, including the prestigious National Startup Award 2021, constituted by the Government of India. Well, I know that you are already inspired, and let me bring my guest inside the studio. Very good evening, Dr. Dhar, and thank you so much for accepting my invitation to Eclectic and this wonderful meeting you here through this virtual mode.
Thank you, Dr. Goswami, for having me on this show. And I look forward to this interesting discussion on the topic that you have chosen, and many other things that might come along while we discuss the topic. So, looking forward.
Sure,
Yes.
sure. So, Dr. Dhar, first thing that I would like to ask you is that what was your inspiration behind bringing this Leucine Rich Leucine Rich Bio Private Limited? What was your inspiration behind this?
Uh, few things, Dr. Goswami. So, when we started starting this company way back in 2014, the whole idea at that point of time was to plug the gaps in certain genomics activities, especially genomics. There are so many applications in genomics, from RNA-seq to whole genome sequencing to exome sequencing. So at that point of time, the whole idea was to plug those gaps when you are writing a report to a biologist, how to make them understand the report well. That was the first idea. The second idea was to use genomics in oncology, to look at the tumor genome and then suggest certain medications based on that. But again, those were the things which were we were ahead of the time. Things were kind of still evolving. But when we realized mid of 2015, 2016, that this microbiome space, which basically includes uh, expertise in various domains, from microbiology to molecular biology to systems biology to coding to bioinformatics, and we had all the expertise in house. So we thought, why not use our expertise and uh, look into that microbiome domain. So we pivoted around the microbiome domain sometime during 2015, 2016, and then the rest is history. So we started working on it. We started developing the algorithms, various backend databases, and all those things started, and then we launched Bugspeaks. So to cut the story short, the whole idea was to bring some change in the way we look at the life science space. We also wanted to create a company which, in the life science space, as you know, in life science space or healthcare space, India is not known to have very big or good companies. We wanted to create that niche, because one successful company in this space will propel other such companies or other people to come into this domain, and make it a vibrant domain. As we see in the IT space, right? One Infosys or one Wipro, what they did to the whole ecosystem is evident in front of us. So we wanted to create that sort of ecosystem in India by developing or creating a company that has something other base apart from the business angles, which is the science. And we chose microbiome because microbiome was very, very new. It was an untouched domain, and we decided to bring that to India and South Asia, to be precise.
That's fantastic. And I think the way your thought process and the entire thing evolved. So, today, as fruit of all those struggles and challenges and efforts, today we see we have Leucine Rich Bio Private Limited in front of us. That's wonderful. So,
Thank
Dr. Debojyoti, today I will come like a child and ask you some silly questions, maybe, because I also would learn from you and as well as my audience. Well, we hear this word microbiome, we hear probiotics. There are so many things running in this, information overload world today. It is not like how we used to have in our childhood days, that we wait for a particular newspaper to read a particular article. But now it is information overload. So, can you just explain what exactly is this gut microbiome? What does this gut microbiome means altogether?
Yeah, before I do that, Dr. Goswami, let me first confess that no question is a silly question, and we still do not know much of what the scientists do. I mean, we do
Right.
not know even today how a cell works. We are still scraping the surface, right? So in that
Correct.
way, I mean, we are all students, and especially in the microbiome space, it is a very, very new field. It's a new field, but the concept is very old. Okay, it dates back to our. If you talk about the Indian, scriptures, Ayurveda and stuff, uh, they have always, given importance to the gut health. So the concept like ama, then Agni, and all those concepts which come from the digestion or gut health is deeply ingrained in our scriptures, Ayurvedic scriptures. And Hippocrates, also the father of modern medicine, once very famously said that all diseases begin in the gut. So the concept is very old. It is just that we are trying to see the evidence of what people have been saying, so in a age old fashion, now, because of the advance in the technology. So that's the major thing, right? Now, coming to your specific question, what is microbiome and what is gut microbiome, to be precise? In your initial introduction, you had very nicely portrayed about microbes. So we so microbiome basic. So there are two terms. Okay, one is microbiota and the second one is microbiome. People use it interchangeably, but actually they are two different terms. So
Okay.
microbiota basically is about all the microorganisms, right? And when I say all the microorganisms, it is not just bacteria. Many people consider bacteria as the only microorganisms, right? So it is not just bacteria. It is bacteria, viruses, fungi, protozoa, archaea, so on and so forth. So microbiota basically means sum total of all the microorganisms. Microbiome basically means the sum total of the genome of all the microorganisms. So that's the difference. Now, as you rightly said in your introductory speech, that uh, microorganisms not only live inside our body, but they also live on our body. And gut microbiome, so actually we should say gut microbiota, basically talks about or looks into the microorganisms which are present in the intestine. So that is all about gut microbiome or gut microbiota. You will be surprised on basically happy to know that there are research going on not only the gut microbiota but also on oral microbiota, skin
Hmm.
microbiota, and vaginal microbiota, because all these niches in our
Hmm.
body and on our body
Hmm.
have been shown to harbor a lot of microorganisms, um,
Right.
and they play a very important role. In the discussion, we will discuss that in detail also. But
Right.
the the gut harbors the maximum number of microorganisms in the body, and
Right.
most of the research so far has been concentrated on the gut microbiota because they harbor most microorganisms. Um, but that doesn't mean that the skin microorganisms or the oral microorganisms or vaginal, especially for women health, they are not that important. They are also very important. Only thing, the research is more focused so far on the gut microbiota.
Okay, okay. So I think that was a very simplistic way of explaining a complex thing, Dr. Debojyoti. Well, yes, I agree with you. You know, when I think, like for me, I resemble the human body like a solar system, because if you see, we have different parts of the body, right from temperature and the architecture. Everything is different if we see it as a segregated way. So I feel this microbiome space or microbiota space is still very unexplored, and there is lot to do. Like as you rightly said about skin microbiome, vaginal microbiome, as well as oral microbiome, because I think it's something like ecology. I mean, they are expert in their own planet, in their own field. So what would be more relevant in oral would not be that much relevant when we take another part of the body. So this is my understanding. So well, coming to the next part, like when we talk about health and gut microbiome, so I think I know it might be a very broad question, but still I would like to ask you that what exactly would be is the role of gut microbiome in health that way.
Oh yeah. So I mean, I will answer this question, but before that, let me also continue with what we were discussing earlier about
Sure.
the microbiome. There's a concept of holobiont. Okay. Now
Okay.
that concept basically means we think that as humans, we are humans, right?
Hmm.
But there is nothing else. But actually, if you look at it,
Hmm.
we are basically living in a symbiotic state with all our microorganisms inside and on our body. If you remove these, then we will be in deep trouble. We will probably not survive, because these microorganisms from our birth till our death, they play a very
Right.
important role. Not only the microorganisms which are on our body or in our body, the environmental microbiome also. See, when we are sitting in and talking or standing or running, we are also surrounded by a lot of microorganisms which we can't see. Right? So COVID has actually made that really worse, because now we
Yes.
understand that things which we cannot see can cause a lot of trouble. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of harmony that goes into play and makes us what we are. So that's a holobiont concept where it's the human genome, then the microbiome on our body and in our body, and the environmental microbiome that completes the human as we know.
Hmm.
So that is one. Now coming to your question of how gut microbiome plays a role in health. See, there are a lot of things. Okay, starting from the presence of the microorganisms in the gut, which provides a kind of immunity. They restrict other organisms to populate, because suppose if there is no microorganisms in your intestine, then there will be overpopulation of different microorganisms, pathogenic microorganisms, and there will be a lot of disease. So that is a simplistic way of looking at it.
Okay.
Apart from that, all these microorganisms secrete certain metabolites. Now, these metabolites have a local effect and a systemic effect. Local effects is well understood. I mean, they will secrete certain things which will have local effect in terms of, let's say, the barrier integrity of the intestine or the intestinal
Huh.
health and so forth. But there are certain metabolites which they secrete, which affect different organs of our body. It might be the brain, it might be the liver, it might be the pancreas, it might be the kidneys, it might be the
Okay.
skin. So there are talks of gut brain axis, there are talks of gut
Hmm.
skin, gut liver axis, and these are well documented. So one is the presence of these microorganisms, which provide what we call, scientifically, colonization resistance to pathogens. Secondly, because they secrete certain metabolites, they influence the way we live, because they affect every other organ in our body. Um, and thirdly, the food that we eat. So it's a two-way relation. The food that we eat modulates the gut microbiota, and the gut microbiota actually modulates certain aspects of our food also. For example,
Hmm.
when we eat, let's say, a lot of red meat,
Huh.
and if there are certain microorganisms present in the intestine, there's a chance that the red meat will be converted into something called as TMAO, right? And
Okay.
that TMAO is known, what do you call, a precursor of plaques in the arteries. So they can block the arteries. So that's
Hmm.
why, So that's a small example. So, and there are many, and of course, microorganisms produce vitamins. They produce certain neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, etc. So their role is humongous when you look at it, and we are just scraping the surface. We still know very little about that ecosystem. We are just scraping the surface, but I'm sure in coming years, a lot more information will come out. And you know uh, when um, when the blood sugar testing first came into existence,
Right.
it was quite different from now what it is. So now everyone can do a blood sugar test at home. There are wearables which can detect sugar at home. 10, 20, 30 years before, that was not the case.
Correct.
Similarly, gut microbiome testing
Hmm.
is sounding new right now, but there are so many applications that we will discuss in the course of our session.
Hmm.
Um, it will become a norm, in years to come.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you on that. And I think my next question was almost directed, and you already got the trail of that in your this present answer. So what I was trying to understand that uh, like we all know about certain things about microbiome, gut microbiome, and you like we also know about oral microbiome and other skin microbiome. So is it that only the abundance that makes scientists or the educated people to look into, or the industry to look into gut microbiome more? Or I mean to say that why focusing on gut microbiome is essential in the first place?
Yeah, it's mainly because one, the maximum concentration of the microorganisms, as you said, abundance
Hmm.
is there, and because there's another aspect, which is the immunity aspect. Uh,
Okay.
yeah. So because the gut microbiota and the immune cells play a very important role on the overall immunity of a person. Okay. So there's a lot of immunity. Your gut, your intestine is basically the first place where it is encountering everything which is coming from your mouth, right? Like your skin and our intestine share a lot of similarities, and hence the immune system has to be really really robust, to otherwise you are swallowing air, you are eating a lot of things. If your immune system is not checked, or is not properly functioning, and gut microbiota plays a very important role there, then you will be very 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 sick. So that is one of the reasons why gut microbiota is looked at. Secondly, you see, whatever you eat passes through your gut, and hence, the microorganisms there play a very humongous role. I mean, very important role. So so that becomes a very important aspect. Thirdly, as we mentioned earlier, that the gut microbiota produces a lot of vitamins and important metabolites for the body.
Hmm. Hmm.
So your it's, by the way, it's sometimes called the second brain, because of its role in the
Okay.
body. Yeah. So that's why it is very very important. And finally, now that we are looking at a lot of the different axes, gut
Hmm.
skin axis, gut liver axis, gut brain
Hmm.
axis,
Hmm.
is very well looked into for various diseases, from your depression, anxiety, to Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. People have really shown a lot of interesting things.
Hmm.
So gut therefore becomes the center point for all these research activities. um, but that doesn't mean, as I said in the very beginning, that the
Hmm.
skin microbiome is less important.
Hmm.
It's only that because gut has so many other functions,
Right.
and the microbiota population is the maximum in the gut, that the whole focus has been on gut so far.
Great. So, Dr. Debojyoti, can you tell us that what exactly? I mean, are there any services or tests that we somebody can avail at Leucine Rich Bio, or how exactly your company works? Can you tell us? Can you highlight something about that?
Right. So we have developed a test called Bugspeaks. Okay,
Okay.
you can go to www.bugspeaks.com. It's South Asia's first gut microbiome test. Now, what
Right.
we do is, see, the challenge for us was, I will give you a bit of a background, because it is important
Hmm.
for the audience to know how
Hmm.
a test is evolved, how a new thing comes to the market, and all those things are done. So
Correct.
so the challenge, as I said in the very beginning, was, it's a very complicated field. Unlike any, because why I'm saying complicated, because one, you are looking at trillions of organisms, right?
Correct. Correct.
Secondly, there's a host, which is the human aspect also involved. So it's an
Hmm.
interaction between all these trillion microorganisms and the host. That is one.
Right.
Second is, because of the technology, and I will explain the technology also in detail. You can look at all these microorganisms without culturing. Now the question is,
Hmm.
that there are X bacteria, Y virus, and Z fungi, let's say. But how do you make sense out of it? How and what will you give to the end user that will make him understand, or the role of these microorganisms, and take
Hmm.
a better decision about his health? So that
Hmm.
those were the challenges, right? So so one is the R&D challenge, which we will not go into too much of details because the audience might get bored. The second aspect is very important or interesting, is the actionable part of the report. How do you make these microorganisms talk? And that's why we call it bug speaks. Okay. Now,
Okay.
in the report, so there are multiple sections that we have developed. Okay. One section is called, the first section, if you open the report, there is something called as rich index, which is
Okay.
RYCH, rich index. Now, why did we come up with this index, and what is it? So when we started beta testing, so please understand that when we started, there were no one that we could compare our reports with, or to.
Correct.
We were doing it for the first time. So we
Hmm.
had few volunteers who were kind enough to give their poop, which is the stool, and we made the report. But when we gave the report, they came back and said, okay, I know that I have XYZ bacteria or viruses, but
Hmm.
how is my intestinal health? Okay, is it good, bad, or ugly? Now, it is very difficult to answer that question even today, because
Hmm.
intestinal, again, doesn't mean that only the microorganisms are playing a role. There are so many other aspects, right? So
True.
then we did one thing. What we did was we looked at the microorganisms. We
Hmm.
looked at various other parameters like their abundance, their
Hmm.
richness, their diversity. Okay, how diverse is the microorganisms
Hmm.
in the gut, and there are so many other things that we have looked into. The foundation microbiota. These are various important microorganisms present.
Hmm.
Their probiotic count, the pathogenic count, and so on and so forth. And then we came up with a score called Rich Index. Now, what this score does is it gives a visual representation of your intestinal health based on the gut microbiota profile. So, person
Okay.
with a good intestinal health or overall health will have a higher score.
Hmm.
Patient with, let's say, having lot of health issues, they
Hmm.
will, they will have a lower score. So that gives a kind of an indication of your overall health and also the gut health. Then the other aspects in the report are, we give a count of how good your probiotics are in the gut. Are they abundant, or if
Hmm.
they are not abundant, which probiotics are missing? Then
Okay.
we look at the antibiotic resistance genes. So we predict that there are certain antibiotic resistance genes that are seen, and hence you might be susceptible or resistant to certain antibiotics.
Okay.
Then we look at vitamin synthesis potential. We look at there's something called a short chain fatty acid, which are very very important for your
Hmm.
overall health and gut health
Right.
specifically. Butyrate, acetate, and propionate. Their potential, neurotransmitter synthesis potential, and your propensity to certain diseases. Now, this is very interesting. So,
Hmm.
uh, if you look at the research, practically every disease now is being linked to the gut microbiota. Okay, now
Okay.
we're looking at 15 to 20 diseases and traits, and what we are seeing is we are looking at the good ones and the bad ones,
Hmm.
and there's a score, there's a matrix that is behind everything. There's an algorithm that is behind everything, and based on that we predict that you might be susceptible to certain diseases. So again, that information also goes into the report. We are making it even better. Now we are using machine learning also, and slowly this aspect will be made much more robust. But right now,
Hmm.
it is based on the curated research papers that we are promoting. And finally, and most importantly, Dr. Goswami, the microbiota are very malleable. It
Hmm.
can change, unlike your
Yes.
genes. So we are born with certain genes. So in genetics or genomics, if there is a certain variant in our gene, you
Hmm.
can't change it, right? If I have a variant
Correct.
in a gene which can cause certain disease, I can't change
Hmm.
it.
Right.
Uh, at least today, I mean, CRISPR-Cas and all those things are available, but those are for future.
Yeah.
But fortunately, microorganisms in the gut can be changed or can be modulated, and food plays the most important part in that. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
so
Hmm.
what we have developed is we have developed a personalized, precision mediated microbiota based nutritional recommendation. So when we see that certain microorganisms are less abundant and certain
Hmm.
microorganisms are more abundant, we want to balance it out. And
Hmm.
there are some research papers that show that this taking this food decreases certain bacteria, taking that food increases certain
Right.
bacteria. Those have gone into the
Hmm.
backend of our databases, and they are then linked using certain algorithms. And then we make a report which gives you a personalized nutritional recommendation, and we generally recommend that you take that for 3 months,
Hmm.
and that should improve the balance of the microorganisms in your gut,
Hmm.
overall impact in your health. So basically, that's what the Bugspeaks report is all about. How do we go about it? Basically, anyone can come to the site bugspeaks.com, book
Hmm.
the test. We will send a kit to your residence, and because this is a do-it-yourself kind of a thing, we need
Okay.
stool samples. And so the kit has a tube with a solution and
Hmm.
other, you know, gloves, etc., so that you can easily collect your sample at home. Once the
Hmm.
sample is collected, you let us know. We get the kit back to our office and our
Hmm.
lab. Then we extract the DNA from the stool and we sequence it. So that's
Okay.
where the technology comes. The technology is next generation sequencing.
Hmm.
And once we sequence it, we get to know all the microorganisms, and then we put our magic sauce, which are all patent pending algorithms and stuff. and then the report is generated and mailed to you. So that's the whole process.
I think it is very interesting to know what you said, and I think anybody can. Is there? I mean, anybody can take up this test, right? Is there any age restriction
Yeah,
or? Uh,
age restriction means anyone who is above 6 years old
hmm,
can take the test. And the reason why we have this 6 year
hmm,
cutoff is because,
hmm,
see, our baseline with
hmm,
which we are comparing everyone is an
right,
adult microorgan
right.
baseline.
Hmm.
And below 6 years or 4 years, the microbiota is still evolving, and we do not
Yes,
have a baseline for that. So that's why anyone above 6 years can take this test anywhere in India. And we have also started exporting it to Thailand. So Thailand is the first country where an Indian developed microbiome test is being exported to. Uh,
fantastic.
yeah, so
I think
and
this itself is an achievement when because we always hear import. So when Indian startups like this they develop such a powerful technology or test and that can be exported, I think that is where our end vision should be as entrepreneurs or at least in the life science spaces. Thank you
absolutely.
so much for giving such a extensive view about the entire process. I think it is very, very interesting. And just to my audience, if you have any questions or if you want to know more about it, so Dr. Dhar, can you just repeat the website where they can go and check about this test, Bugspeaks?
Yeah, it is www.bugspeaks bugspeaks.com.
Right. So I will also put this information in the description of this video once this live is over, so you can actually go and check. Well, just coming to a different aspect altogether, what we are discussing right now, something when you were talking, I understood what kind of challenges you might have faced. I mean, I can just only feel it, but I think you have gone through the process. So, generally, in life sciences, particularly, starting as a company or rather bringing up a startup at the initial stage, it is quite challenging because we need to invest a lot, right from what we are talking. First of all, we need a proof of concept, then we have to validate, and only then I think it comes to the next levels till commercialization. What was your challenges and how you overcame all this, and what is in general, I mean, there are two parts of this question. What is in general your views on life sciences startup ecosystem altogether, particularly if we focus for our country, India?
Yes, very good question, Dr. Goswami, and I'm glad that you brought this here in this forum.
Hmm.
Um, See, life science for life science startups or any company in the life science domain, um, uh, there's a lot of there's long incubation period, right?
Hmm.
Because as you rightly said, you need proof of concept, and because you're dealing with lives, it has to be properly vetted and so on and so forth. And because of that, maybe a lot of the investors are shying away from investing in this sector.
Correct.
However, this is a high risk, high gain sector. So the risk is high, but the gain is even higher. And that's why you see so many startups in the matured ecosystem, like in the US,
Hmm.
where
Hmm.
they get funding even at the stage of the concept. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Um, and you have those spin-offs, like professors in US universities. They have they have a concept. They have some interesting leads, and they spin off a company.
Correct.
They get funding immediately. But in
Right,
India, this is
right.
not true, because mainly I'm not blaming anyone, but it's basically that we have not yet been successful in showing the investors that a successful life science
Hmm.
healthcare startup can run in India with a very novel uh, concept. Now, coming to us, fortunately for us, the incubation period was there, but it's not as long as a general life science startup probably would have.
Hmm.
I'll give you an example, Dr. Goswami. I was part of a company called Connectious Life Sciences way back in 2010.
Okay.
which was a very new concept at that point of time, which was a drug discovery company. So the concept was
Mm-hmm.
they would focus only on drug discovery, and once they have a lead molecule or something, then they will out license it to a bigger pharma company. That was the concept. Now, in those kind of companies, the incubation period can range from 5 to 15 years,
Correct.
because you're looking at so many aspects. To come to a particular lead molecule takes
Mm.
a lot of time.
Mm.
Even though you're not doing the clinical trials, you are just restricting yourself to the preclinical stage, but still it takes a lot of time.
Mm.
uh, in our case, we had a product within 2 to 3 years, right? And we commercialized the product within 3 to 4 years of the company being in existence, which is
Mm.
a very, very short incubation period. The
Right.
problem that we face, and we are still
Mm.
facing, is that it's a very nascent domain.
Mm.
In India, the investors are, they want quick returns. And I'm not blaming them either, but to understand that in this life science domain, it takes
Mm.
time. If you compare us with a app company, okay, like a gaming app, where the downloads are in thousands per day or month, you cannot compare a microbiome test company doing 1,000
Correct.
tests a day at this stage. Maybe in another
Mm.
year or two, it will be the norm.
Mm.
But so someone has to understand that, and
Mm.
then see, talking about the microbiome, especially gut microbiome, there are so many applications in so many faculties, right?
Mm.
Right now, we are positioning it as a wellness product, and
Correct.
we are doing a clinical trial as we speak, where we are trying to show its efficacy in two disease conditions.
Mm.
Once the data comes out, we publish. It'll be good, but its impact in various faculties, starting from gastroenterology to endocrinology to cardiovascular health to women health to mental health and oncology,
Mm.
is enormous. So if this understanding comes to the investor that okay,
Mm.
take time, but there are so many applications that this can really give lot of return to the investment, then I think investors will understand what we are talking about. And I don't blame them, because it's a very new concept. It's a very
Yes.
new concept, and people would like to see some headway.
Mm.
And we're lucky that we got our first round of funding in 2017 uh, from a family office in Bangalore called Om Fellows Ventures, and they have been really good support to us,
Mm-hmm.
uh, who understood the vision, and they are backing us up. But yes, but now we are in a stage where we need to scale up. We need to
Correct.
scale up. There are so many applications that we want to get into. For that, we need the investment. Secondly, I will also talk about something called as India's first gut microbiome based nutraceutical product that we launched called Rich Biome. Okay.
Mm.
So the background to it was, as I said, in the Bugspeak report, we
Mm.
generally give information about the probiotics that are missing, right?
Right.
And many people used to come back and say, hey, I'm not finding the probiotics that are mentioned in the report in the market. So then we did a small internal R&D, and we found that the Indian gut
Huh.
consistently is devoid of certain probiotics. Okay, so we thought,
Okay.
why not make a composition of that? And
Mm-hmm.
as an experiment, we launched it in the market, and you'll be
Okay.
surprised. This product is called Rich Biome Indus. This basically is India's first gut microbiome based product, gut microbiome data based product. Okay?
Fantastic.
Uh, yeah, so this is really doing good. Although we are not selling it as a cure for any disease or anything, it's
Hmm.
still a wellness product. But
Hmm.
people with IBD, IBS, various gut issues, skin issues,
Hmm.
are taking it, and we have got very, very good feedback from that product also. So what it goes to show is that if you do proper science,
Hmm.
and then commercialize a product, uh,
Hmm.
and if you get a backup or backing of a good investor, then sky's the limit. We are
Yes.
doing it with very little support right now. Okay,
I understand.
just imagine if we get investment like the way certain e-commerce companies get,
Correct.
where this thing can go.
No, I think as I understand from like what you say, and I think it is uh, it is little unfortunate when we compare the Indian startup ecosystem with the Western world, like because I have also seen and I have also experienced this, because here the thing is that yeah, this is more about I think. We as scientists or academicians, I think we also need to educate people who are investors. I don't know, it might be a very big sentence that I'm saying on a public forum, but because I think the vision, understanding the vision of a particular life science startup is the most important thing. So that is somewhere there is a gap here, which we don't we will really don't see that thing in the Western countries, like as you very rightly said about the professors spinning off companies. That is a very normal thing in the Western world. So I
Correct.
think slowly, and I slowly this in the coming days or years we will see more growth, because right now I think the government of India is also backing so much about
Yes.
entrepreneurship and startups being coming up. And I think you have already set the mark, you have already achieved that point of uh, making yourself or your company as an example where many people will be inspired. And definitely, as you talked about investment, I'm sure that we all go through a kind of phase of lows and highs, and I'm sure that the way you brought up all these uh, the Bugspeak test, as well as the product, the wellness product that you talked about. I think if it is like, I agree with you completely. If it's a good science, results will speak. So I think it's just a matter of time. So. It was really wonderful talking to you, Dr. Debojyoti, and it is so nice to understand this fascinating science and so nice work that you are doing. And I wish you all the best for all your future upcoming endeavors. And just to conclude, um, what would be your message as a very avid academician and a scientist, as well as an entrepreneur? What would be your message to aspiring young life science aspirants who wants to actually venture into new sciences just like you did and come up with their own startup? What would be your message to them?
So one thing is, start thinking out of the box, because many of these things what we are seeing right now happened because we started thinking out of the box. See, this rich biome, even the bug speaks,
Correct.
it all happened because if we had continued the way we were doing, then
Hmm.
things would be different. We would not have done what we have done. So
Right.
thinking out of the box is very very important. Second, you have to be patient. Patience,
Hmm.
I think people who have done PhD will understand the virtue of being patient. But starting a company and entrepreneurship takes it to tenfold level. So you have to be patient and you have to persevere because it's not easy. You have to take everything on your chin. The
Hmm.
failures, the uh, the negative feedback, the failures, and all those things. And when you are an entrepreneur, you are not just thinking about you. You are thinking about the company. You are thinking about your fellow colleagues. So it's not just you now. It's all the family in the company that are
Correct.
involved. So that kind of is a different feeling. You know, if you ask me, it's been a very very good journey, Dr. Goswami, and
Hmm.
I really mean it. I mean, I have learned a lot. If I had continued my career the way normally a lot of scientists
Hmm.
do, I would
Hmm.
probably be sitting in a lab doing some research in a lab or something like that. But with this, the exposure that I have got, the chance of meeting so nice people from various walks of life, touching people's lives. People have come back and said that my ailment has improved. I am feeling
Hmm.
better. Listening to that is such a nice thing. And finally, and most importantly, giving employment to people is
Yes.
also very very satisfactory. And I wish that a successful life science company will probably propel other such companies and investors to come into this domain, and we
Hmm.
should see very strong life science healthcare ecosystem in India.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Debojyoti, for your time in spite of your very hectic schedule. And it was wonderful talking to you. And I hope we will keep meeting and come up with more interesting talks like this in the near future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Goswami. It was a pleasure.